We need an opposition force in our country. Our current national debt is $16 trillion with a deficit more than $1 trillion a year. And when they started saying, well, they're just a party of no, we should say thank you. Somebody ought to say no. I've said no to my grandson a lot. In fact, I bought a little sign I put in the middle of the street because it says kids that play. And I told them, you cannot cross that sign because they don't know how to live. And if they run out in the middle of the street and the car doesn't see him, they will kill himself. And that's what we're doing as a nation. And then we get timid when they call us the party of no. Biggest problem facing our country today is that liberalism doesn't work. Uncle Sam's plantation didn't work for blacks and it's not going to work for the middle class. And our nation is a culture locked in moral freefall. And the people that are getting hit the hardest are the poor. And they just keep voting for their big government because the promise of government is that it'll happen next time. If we can shake it out of more rich people's hands, it'll happen next time. Our political discourse proves that we are in an aggressive war for the very heart and soul of our country. The reality is that we're a split nation again. And unfortunately, we're a split nation and then split within the Republican Party. We are, as a country, and we should know after that last election, that we as a country are exactly where we are in the 1800s. In 1860, when Abraham Lincoln said, we can't do this anymore. He opened up the Bible and he said, he read, it was in red writing, that a house divided against itself can't stand. He knew it. He said, we've tried this for 80 years. We've been doing this, playing political games, trying to debate whether we can free ourselves, get consistent with our founding documents. And it's just not happening anymore. After the Stephen Douglas debate, it wasn't going to happen. And he said, we're not going to dissolve the Union. I'm confident of that. And I'm confident we're not going to dissolve America. But we can't do this anymore. We can't be both. We can no longer be slave half and free half. And that's exactly where we are, and all of us knew it going into election, and it was picture clear coming out that that's exactly where we were in the 1850s when he first said it. And we know that the result there. Liberals always pretend that they're against war, but they started 3 aggressive wars in the 60s, and they've been raging since. And opposition party doesn't even want to talk about it. And we say, well, you know what, somewhere at some point we need to have a discussion about this so we can determine who we are. So that we can then come up and make a case. We don't want to talk about it. Well, I talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. And if my invites get less, I really don't care because, frankly, what I've been doing through CURE is we're building our own media machine so that I can have a voice to talk about it. We've been building a media studio thanks to the people that have been helping me, and now I'm doing daily commentary. We're going to do a weekly television show, and I'm going to buy time because one of the interesting things that the internet has done for us, thank God. I just praise the Lord that he created the internet. It was not Al Gore, because if it was Al Gore, we'd be taxed by now, but it's not Al Gore, it's God. But what the internet did, it made a more competitive environment on the television side, so television time is cheap. And people still sit down and kind of click their little TV, and then they see you talking and say, ooh, who's that? And you get a lot of attention. But we need to talk about it because the liberals have created 3 wars, and they started this war on religion. You want to know what happened to our society? They started a war on religion that weakened our public institutions and opened a door to a culture of corruption. And when your lawmakers are 13%, you're now with the IRS, who do we trust? You know, I just saw a study today coming out of one of the agencies in the front page of the paper. I just put the paper down and said, because I don't even know if I can believe that. How do we know what we can believe now coming out of our government officials when they would be this conniving and sneaky at low levels? These are people that really believe that they were doing only their job, as we heard through after the Nuremberg trials. I was only doing what I was told, because that's what bureaucrats do. But I already knew that there were problems because years ago, you know, one of the papers I told you I read for Scripps, but one of the papers is in Washington, D.C., the Washington Examiner. And so the strategy of the Washington Examiners to get their paper out a lot is that they pay low wage for people to stand in the corner and give it away free. And so, of course, the people stand on the corner and give it away free in Washington, D.C. is a black town, so they're black people. So they look in there and they see this one little black face in a little black box, so they read the column. Who is this? And they read the column. So I walked in the post office one day to mail a letter, and this woman said, oh, no, you didn't come to my counter. I said, excuse me? She said, after what you said about my president? Oh, honey. I said, and what your president's trying to do with me now? When I went in, 3 or 4 other counters were also open. There was only 2 people in line. By the time I finished with her, all her little friends had gone in the back because I was not speaking lightly. And the line was long and going out the door, and I never turned around to see the line growing. So I never told you that these bureaucrats can't be trusted to begin with, because all of a sudden we started having problems with our mail at Cure. All of a sudden, boxes of mail with the proper posting and address were being returned by the bulk to us to have to read mail. It had gotten so bad, this was a couple years ago, that I wanted to change our post office. I said, well, we should be able to choose a different post office. Well, you have to report it. To who? The Attorney General? Oh, that would really be good. Eric Holder? Yeah, okay, never mind. No, we have a culture of corruption because they went after religion. In 62, Supreme Court struck down state-sponsored school prayer. In 63, the court ruled you can't read the Bible or do the Lord's Prayer in class. By the 80s, no 10 Commandments. The second war they started was a war on marriage. You know, someone mentioned earlier the war on women. No, they started a war on marriage, and it weakened women and opened the door for meaninglessness. And now look what has happened. Homosexuality is now dividing us and bringing a horrible hostility into the public square. Abortion has deeply hurt us. 55 million dead? I mean, at what point do we pause? How many pictures do we need to see of gosnails to say, oh, you know, we're just going to turn our eye on that one? That's an anomaly. That's not an anomaly. In fact, his defense lawyer told us, what do you think we are doing in there? If late-term abortion is law, and you can kill it to 24 weeks, how do you think you kill a 24-week-old baby? In 1960, 75% of American adults were married, compared to 50% today. In 1960, 45% of young adults between 18 and 24 were married, compared to 9% today. And while 1 in 4 American adult women never married, and only about 50% are currently married, 4 in 10 births are outside of marriage. Do we really, as a Republican Party, think that we can talk only about the economy? When I already told you that these births are paid for by government. In 1980, when Ronald Reagan was president, 18% of births were outside of marriage, compared to 43% today. We're not who we used to be. Liberals have controlled our classrooms and our public square. 1.7 million out-of-wedlock birth rates in 2011 alone. Blacks went from 22% out-of-wedlock birth rates in the 60s to 72% today. Whites went from 3% to just under 30% today. Hispanics, while there was no data in the 60s because they weren't a special interest group that the liberals decided that they were going to target market to, and then we decided we were going to follow their path, so we didn't keep that kind of data in the 60s. But we keep data today. 53% out-of-wedlock birth rates in this Hispanic community that we now want to give amnesty. And in fact, the top 3 social crises confronting us today are rooted in sexual matters: AIDS, abortion, and the entire welfare state. And the third war they declared was a war on poverty, and a weakened family, and opened the door for this culture of entitlements. The Great Society has great cost, as many Americans are finding out, and us blacks knew a long time. In just 50 years, blacks went from 70% of children being raised in marital households to 70% of children being raised in single households today. And there's a mountain of data that show the connection between religion and traditional marriage to civil order, protection of private property, and economic prosperity. So if we really want to build a peaceful and prosperous nation, we're going to have to build communities of responsible people again. When free people don't self-govern, justice becomes a creature of the powerful. And power is in government. And the powerful always demand control and conformity. This is not new. We all know Lord Act, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I don't see anywhere in the Declaration of Independence that politicians have a right to force me to pay for my neighbor's lifestyle. Not their housing, their food, their child care, their habits, nor their sex life.
GrokTV.